Welcome to another episode of the No Bullshit Show. Today we're going to be talking about social media, how to use it properly, how people are using it wrong in a very, very no bullshit type of way. Because I see a ton of people doing it wrong, especially when it comes to like followers and what to measure. Like the number of times I have to tell people like stop measuring followers. Like if you're start measuring it on levels of revenue, because I've seen people in the YouTube community and the Instagram community. I work with a few of them, and they're always talking about, oh, I need to get my followers up to 1 million people. I'm just like, is there even 1 million people in your market? Like, how much money are you making? I know people who are making 200,000, like have 200,000 followers, but only make like 1,000 a month. And I know people who have 50,000 followers or like 5,000 followers who are making a killing. They're like making 5-10 grand a month, and just like different ways of thinking about it. That's my thought. What's your experience?
So my perspective is really coming from as the guy that, or as the guy on this side of the table that didn't grow up with social media, right? And so it's been something that's been interesting to see it unfold. But I am curious to see, how do you monetize it? And as the senior gray-haired perspective on social media, it's very different than yours, Andrew. So curious to see how we how the conversation goes.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is really valuable from your experience is like pre-social media, pre-internet, like we only had a select few channels to get into the market, right? TV, radio, print, different channels on TV, so on and so forth. Now we have like millions of different channels that we could target into, and social media seems to be obviously the most predominant because of like the audiences, numbers that they attract, and the monthly active usage. But I think what people are getting trapped into this loophole of is technology or those social media platforms telling them what to do.
Oh, I see.
Right? For their own selfish needs of, hey, look, we want you to be successful. Like if YouTube always sends emails and I get forwarded these emails on, like we want you to be successful. We want you to, do really well and make a lot of ad dollars off of us. So you need to get your subscriber base up, blah, blah. But one, there's a ton of other metrics that should be taken into consideration: audience retention, longevity, like how long is a video viewed for, so on and so forth. But then it gets to a point where all they're saying in a nutshell is get your subscribers up, but then it's to the detriment of the actual user themselves.
I guess it's just the easiest it's the lowest hanging fruit, right, in terms of measures of success. Is that the more people that are watching it, then just by the sheer numbers, you're going to, hopefully, it translates into better success in terms of monetizing whatever product or service you're offering.
Yeah.
But it comes back to quantity versus quality, right? I'm a huge believer in that, the quality of your message, if you're attracting the right audience and you're really resonating with your defined segment, to me, that's far more effective use of your budget than this whole kind of shotgun approach of, like I'm going to go on social media and try to be all things to all people. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily believe that that's any different than, putting up a flyer on people's windshields.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So can you share your experience around what experience you do have with marketing pre the internet age?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I don't have a whole lot. I guess I could go, like in terms of just the anecdotal. It's, I think about, when I first joined Facebook, which was really, I guess, for me, the first kind of entry point into social media. There wasn't a lot of ads. Mm-hmm. Like there wasn't really this urgency to monetize. But, all of a sudden, you grew your base in terms of the Facebook and the audience, and so all of a sudden, there was an opportunity to monetize it. I don't know. I guess it just still felt for me as the consumer that it was still just a lot of shotgun, a lot of ads that were not relevant. Mm. But now, and I think we've all seen it in the media, is that it seems like the focus is too good in that. All of a sudden, you hear the people talking about, I was talking talking about cat food. and then all of a sudden on my Facebook wall, there's an ad for cat food.
Yeah.
To me, that's kind of pulling the pendulum way too far on the other side.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't have a huge amount of experience on the marketing it from a business standpoint, pre social media.
Yeah.
But you know, like I've done some work with print ads and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, it's just feeding the demand.
But so in the past though, like
Yep.
pre-internet,
Yep.
businesses succeeded based on like their measure of success whenever they ran a TV ad or Super Bowl ad, for example, was okay, we spent, let's say, $1 million on this Super Bowl ad, which clearly it's way low budget, but it's a lot higher than that.
Yeah.
Okay, how much return in terms of a dollar value did we get back? I don't know where the fuck that got lost in the industry, where now people are like, oh, our measure of success is gaining 1,000 more followers by spending $1,000 on this campaign or $1,000 on ad budget.
Yeah.
And that's scary as hell, right?
But you can't, like, going back, you cannot, I don't think there's, at the time, technology didn't exist to be able to truly measure your ROI against your Super Bowl ad, for instance, right? It was just awareness. There's an element of, you know, it's your absence is noticed more than your presence. So you just kind of had to be in that game. But, you know, that's why marketing was always this kind of black art in terms of it's a necessary part of growing a business. To what value it brings to the business. It was still very kind of, you know, you were just basically inferring it based on, you know, specific kind of behaviors that you're noticing within your audience. But you know, even today, even with the technology, right, there's this element of how do you associate, you know, like attribute, you know, revenue against a specific campaign when there's, you know, you may have a print campaign, you know, does that influence the ROI against a particular marketing campaign, even though it was not specifically tied. So there's still this kind of gray area in which, you know, you have to attribute in terms of influence against your ROI.
Yeah. Like I understand, so like with the technology today and tracking parameters and, you know, having tracking URLs and all that kind of stuff, we're in a lot better state of like tracking to a revenue dollar. But I think what's happening is that there's a lot of people who are straying behind the pack because all they do, like what's your instantaneous thing? So for any new business owner out there who is a non-marketing person, non-tech person, immediately what they're going to do is, okay, I need to get on social media, right? 'Cause everyone, like the default options are, okay, I start my business, I register my business, I get someone to build my website, I buy my domain, figure out what my name is, my logo, and then I create a Facebook profile, Instagram profile, I create a LinkedIn profile, like Twitter, Pinterest profile. You create all these profiles, which is the easy part, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, I'm at 0 followers, or like I sent out a message to all my friends, blah, blah, because Facebook told me to, right? And now you're gonna fucking burn all your relationship with your friends, but because you're consistently selling to them. And then the natural order of what you're going to do is you're going to Google, oh, how do I get more followers? Because you're stuck in this rut of like, okay, and then there's all these articles because that's a natural confirmation bias because you're only searching for what you want to see and they're going to show you what you want to see. And so you read all these articles around like saying, okay, how to get 1,000 followers fast, or, you know, buying followers versus thing. And someone who doesn't know any better is going to fall into this trap of like, oh, I need to get followers, and then once I get the followers, I'll make the money. But then my natural argument to anyone who comes to me or even proposes that, Andrew, I want to hire you. Can you get me to 5,000, 10,000 followers, or can you get me to 1 million followers? And then my natural argument, and this is predominantly in the B2B space, is why in the living fuck do you want to do you want to be an influencer? Is that going to be your biggest channel? You run a professional services agency, or you run a professional services business. You're a fucking dentist, right? like you run a local fucking dentistry, or you run a local law firm that you have this particular radius of customers you have. What in the living hell makes you think that you get to 1 million followers, let's say predominantly all your people are from Europe or the US or south of the border, right? In Texas. What the hell makes you think that that person from Texas, just because they saw you on the internet, is gonna travel their ass all the way to your law office?
I mean, that's an extreme. Yeah,
it's an extreme. But what I'm trying to say is, would you rather have, and we talk about this off camera, would you rather have 1 million followers and then all of a sudden like try to develop this channel of influence revenue?
Yep.
Or do you want to have like 1,000 followers and every single one of them is local within your region, targeted, segmented, and paying you dollars? Like, I don't know where people get lost with this.
But it comes back to, it's what you do, it's the norm, right? It's the default that every founder, every business owner goes through, is because that's what they're told.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
And
I'm saying it's wrong. I'm saying right now on camera, the default is wrong.
But there's a legitimate reason that perhaps you need that base, right? And I think there's, to some level, you know, it's like buying a lottery ticket. The analogy is, if you buy 0 lottery tickets, your chances of winning the lottery is 0.
Yeah.
You buy 1, the probability of winning actually improves infinitely.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to have some following in order to get your message across. And if you don't know which of the followers is going to be, you know, making the purchase decision to buy your service or your good, then you kind of have to attract as many, because then it just becomes a numbers game, right? So, but again, it depends on, is it awareness? It's about getting people, hey, I'm, you know, Dr. AY, the dentist, dentist to the stars. And so maybe I have some interesting, unique insights that I can share that's going to be relevant to somebody sitting in Cuba. I don't know.
So, okay, so there's an element of, so for example, I don't know why I came up with dentistry, but let's say you have a dentistry.
Yeah.
You know, you've kind of saturated and you've kind of taken over your own little region, your own little local region, and you know, you're starting to do some marketing, and you start to see people in Texas starting to like watch your videos, and they want to come to you, but they can't. That's a fucking stretch for anyone, because honestly, anyone in Texas is going to go to their fucking local dentist if they
but who knows? Maybe the guy in Texas has a cousin in Toronto.
Oh my god. Okay,
he says, hey, I heard about this, you know, Dr. Andrew, he's the best dentist in town. You might want to go check that out.
That's a goddamn stretch though, right? Because like,
but it will never happen. It's like
people are not, like, as much as I love people and like I give faith in humanity, like really, that's a stretch for anyone to put in that work to actually go and do that, right?
I mean, it's rare, but to me, my honest opinion around social media is that everybody's doing it, so therefore, if we want to play the game, you kind of have to get into the game, right? So you have to at least, I wouldn't say it's a priority.
Yeah.
And it depends on the nature of your business and what your objectives are.
Yeah.
But you'd be foolish not to kind of leverage that channel.
Yeah.
If it means that there's the potential that you're going to drive revenue, right?
Yeah. So I'm not saying not to use social media. Like, use it. I'm saying use it correctly and measure the right stuff. So from a perspective of, a caveat of our discussion right now is, let's say I want to sell to you, okay, and you're trying to figure out if I'm credible, if I have a reputation,
sure,
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, you go to my social media profile, you go to my company profile, and you only see, let's say, 10 followers, right?
Yeah.
Is that really what you're looking at?
That's an indication, for sure.
Okay, but is that right or wrong? Because I'm saying that's wrong, because what should end up, if you're gonna work with me based on how many followers I have, maybe you're not in my target market. Maybe you don't want to work. I don't want to work with you.
But it depends on the phase of the journey you're on. How do I know that you have 10 followers because you just set up your Instagram account yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you set it up 10 years ago and you only have 10 followers. That's a different interpretation, right? Like, how I would perceive that would be very different.
Yeah.
So to me, it is certainly human nature for me to react and say, oh shit, there's 2 dentists. Yeah. One has 1,000 followers, one has 10,000 followers. Yeah, it's human nature for me to think, oh, the guy with 10,000 followers is probably more credible because, hey, 10,000 people are following him.
Yeah.
It's a natural bias that's created. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going to discount the guy with only that has fewer followers.
Yeah.
But it's still the first kind of indicator is, if I'm comparing apples to apples, the guy that has kind of aligned himself with more of a following is going to be, perceived as more credible. Well, you can't deny that.
Okay, so you can't, but I think what I'm trying to get across with this video is like perceptions need to change. Right?
Sure.
So as hard, like I know changing personality is probably the most impossible thing you could ever do in life, but there's an element of if I want to work with you and I only see you have 10 followers,
yeah.
Knowing what I know would never discount you from like my shopping experience of I want to work with some kind of level of executive because I need that person to kind of bring in and blah blah blah. But the thing is, I need to know. I think what's fucked up in the technology is that that's really the only number you see, right? Because what ends up happening is what you don't know is maybe those 10 people that are following you are actually like each paying you $1 million a piece, and you're way better off. You're a way better decision than the person who has 10,000 followers and he only let's say only 5 of them paid him $5,000 a month. But what I'm just trying to say is that the perception needs to change because you need to start understanding holistically by taking a step back and saying, okay, let me talk to you as a person. Let's try to eliminate that entire element of followers and stop making a quick snap judgment, because I feel that's where the industry's taking us and making those snap judgments around, okay, you have 10 followers, this guy has 10,000, I'm going to go with the guy who has 10,000. But in actuality, your results and what I don't see behind the scenes is actually like...
Sure. And I think that's the message, right? It's not that you're discounting those that have more followers than others, but there's more variables that you should consider when you're looking at thought leadership or a individual as a thought leader or expert. The number of followers doesn't necessarily dictate to unique insights and so on, right? Or credibility. I get that, but it is a dimension. I think you cannot remove that to say, if everything else were equal, if the number of followers were removed as a key metric, what are the other metrics that you would consider, right? There's a few, I guess, but I truly believe it would be very difficult or near impossible for people not to react in a certain way when they see that number.
So let's level the playing field into something that we all know and probably our audience knows. Is let's relate this to cars. Right? So if the interesting reality and the natural bias that I feel like a lot of people have right now is, let's say I want to, going back to the example, I want to work with you, or I want to work with 2 dentists, right? One drives a fucking nice ass Mercedes C-Class, right? Or like, let's say an AMG version of it. And there's another guy who drives a Toyota Corolla, because I fucking hate Toyotas. All right? So let's say we have these 2 cars, and yes, to the average Joe, I'd probably consider that this person who drives a Mercedes is, running a lot more of a successful business than this person who drives a Toyota Corolla. But then my argument is, look at Warren Buffett. The guy is one of the richest people on the planet, and he still drives his 10-year-old Camry. I don't know why he drives Toyota, for the love of fucking God, but he still drives a Camry.
I love Toyotas.
Toyota, do something. Do something. You're changing. Your new Corolla looks good, but the rest of it,
it's fun. You raise a good point. It's a legitimate kind of observation you're making. But all I'm suggesting is that don't be short-sighted and don't be quick to judge.
I think that's our message. Yeah.
I think that is the message. But you can't, I guess all I'm saying is that at this point, it's impossible not to consider social media as a potential channel, right? I think.
Yep.
Bless you, man.
Thanks, man.
And, but yeah, it's not the end all be all, right? Coming from a guy that grew up without it. Right? I gave up my Facebook account years ago because it was just a time suck. And so on. So, it has its place. Social media has its place, you know, whether it's a, you know, yeah, creating connections, generating awareness for social kind of, I don't know.
There is a huge benefit of social media, and like hands down, like up to the point of creating and holding on to your social media handles and your social media profiles. If you start a new business, yes, that's a good way of keeping your domains, keeping your name, keeping your brand entity, your brand identity, and you know, advertise by all means. Like there's like all the Facebook ads I've run, all the highly targeted Facebook ads I've run, the LinkedIn ads I've run, like they've all been very successful in a sense of driving revenue. But that's my measure of success. But I feel what I'm trying to say to everyone is don't lose that element of revenue. Don't lose that element of leveraging it for a revenue element and monetizing it. Not in the way of like, oh, you know, monetizing your social media channels, but like attaching it to some level of revenue that doesn't stray away from your brand, right? There's a lot of corporations, like there's a lot of brands out there, especially B2B brands, that are trying to get to 100,000 followers, but that's all their plan leads to.
Got it.
They've developed this plan.
That's their measure of success is, hey, we've, you know, good for us, we've hit 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
And not really done anything with it.
Yeah, like there's a ton of social media marketers out there, that are making money off just keeping their social media channels up or organically posting random stuff here and there that's not original. And what a lot of these corporations, where their mistake is they want to develop a social media strategy, right, or a social media plan that gets up to the point of like, okay, our end goal is let's get to this many followers in a year. Yeah. But that's where it fails, because now you need to start. Okay, what's the next step, right? The plan should be, okay, in our Facebook.
Well, it's standard marketing. It's engagement, right?
Yeah.
So you've created your awareness through your social media channel.
Yeah.
And then the next measure of success should be, okay, what's the level of engagement that you have?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's the funnel. It's the classic funnel.
Yeah, right? Like there's an element of like, if you're a tech company and your initial goal is to just get as many users on your product as possible while still burning through cash and investor money just to get to a point, like how Facebook did it, right? Yeah. They want to get to, their initial goal was just increase their user base, like go tomorrow, and they were burning through cash in the first year. And then you get to a point of monetization and blah, 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 like short-term pain for long-term gain. But it's for any other business that's not, let's say, tech related or going after users or something, and they're like the dentists of the world. You need to make that.
Yeah, that's a very specific use case, because dentists, you're right, it's your reach doesn't need to be global.
Yeah. Unlike
a tech company, perhaps. So it's really a localized kind of awareness and all of that. In order, if your measure of success is going to be, you know, new patients, or you know, more fees per patient, whatever your measure of success is. So to me, that's a little bit different, and I agree that social media has its place within that type of a use case, but not to the extent of a global brand like a Coca-Cola, who's looking really trying to, you know, who has a global presence. So I don't know. It has its use. I think the message is really more around. It's not. Don't get too hyper focused on simply your reach within social media, but your strategy should really include, okay, what are the other facets that you want to kind of accomplish, and what are those measures of success? Right? Yeah, because revenue may not be your only measure of success. I think about like a not-for-profit. Yeah, you know, oftentimes the mandate and the objective is really about awareness and reach. Mm-hmm. So then, in that instance, is a true measure of success how many people are following your not-for-profit's, Instagram account or Facebook account.
Yeah, right? Like organically that makes sense, but there's like, even for a non-profit though, there's an element of like donations, right, to sustain the operations of the business. So it's like, I feel there's clearly in the non-profit world, there's a stronger emphasis on awareness, reach, and having followers is awesome. but there's still, if like I said before, if you take a step back and kind of like take a look at it holistically, there's still that element of donors. It's not, I wouldn't say, maybe the terminology is different for nonprofits because it's not technically revenue, it's just donations. But having, let's say you have 100,000 followers, there's an element of those, like there has to be a good percentage of those followers that are donating whatever time, like maybe donating at one time a greater value, or donating a lower value over a longer period of time on a regular recurring basis. So there's still an element of like money, because I think you and I both know to a fairly strong degree that cash is king when it comes to a business.
For sure.
And then you're above that is your customers, right? Because your customers are the ones who are
and you can have the argument to say if you treat your customers well, the money or the revenue will look after itself.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
But here's another thing to think about is that is the value of social media within an organization dependent on where you are in your own evolution, right? So for instance, there's companies who will put together a deal and take it as a loss for a number of different reasons. So if we were hyper-focused on revenue, bottom line, top line, that's not a good business decision. But if you're doing it for market share, getting, it's the wedge deal to get into a company or into a different sector, then to me that makes sense to lose money, which is counter to the kind of profit motivator. So I think in the same vein, depending on where you are in your journey, maybe viewers or followers is a good measure until you get to a certain point of your own evolution, where all of a sudden it's not about the followers or the number, it's more about how many can you monetize within that phase or within that stretch of your company.
So I agree with you, and like going back to the example of like tech companies, right? So you're building a software, you're building a SaaS product, whatever it may be, and the first initial step is, let's say the first year step, like a short-term step, is getting as many users as possible.
Sure.
Right?
That's huge. Yeah.
What ends up, but the thing is, let's take that measure very, very literally.
Okay.
Right? I need to get as many users as possible on my product. That's not, and like revenue is out of the picture for that first year, right? But what ends up happening is, let's say within this measure, there's a sub-measure of how many followers.
Sure.
Right? But how do you actually tie those together? Like the problem is that, so marketers, they're like, oh, we need to get to 100,000 followers. But if none of those followers ever register for your product or even fill out a form, then that's a failed campaign. Whereas if you had 100 people, 100 subscribers, 100 followers, very small measure in the grand scheme of things, but if every single one of those guys at 100% rate, which is likely never ever going to happen, at 100% conversion rate, register for your product or your SaaS product, then that's a successful campaign. But where people get stuck is the numbers game, right? Just purely based, like, it's not, in the mathematical world, that's not really a numbers game, because it's the saddest numbers game on the planet. But it's a numbers game of like, oh, I need to get to 100,000 followers because by chance and by benchmark numbers and benchmark conversions.
But that's where the technology comes in, right? That's where the analytics comes in. I'm going to ask, what do you think would be the worst spend for marketing in terms of you get huge amounts of attention, you get huge amounts of people on your list? I would say events, right? Would you agree?
No.
Really, eh?
Yeah, because it's a very broad statement in a sense of events won't work for the entire gamut of the millions of different industries.
I know, but the amount of money companies invest in events with their booths and the people that they send down, and they come home with reams of people because, primarily I would think, intuitively it's people just want the swag, whatever you're giving away. And just because you attended a booth, dropped your business card into the fishbowl or whatever, does not make you a qualified lead. Right?
Exactly.
So it's,
as much as marketers want to call it a fucking lead,
because they've expressed they've kind of raised their hand, right? To say, oh, I'm interested in your product. Oh, by the way, I love your thumb drive or whatever.
The sad thing is, you're forced into it though. It's like, oh, you put your business card in the thing, we'll give you like $5. Okay, great. I would love $5. I don't want to be on your fucking list, but I want $5.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think it was just, it's the same kind of conversation though, right? It's like sometimes it's necessary, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, to bring it all back, an event is necessary because if your competitor is there, people are going to have, there's going to be more mind share given to your competition versus yourself if you're not present.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, you can't directly correlate that to revenue or sales, but you could infer it based on the fact that maybe there's an opportunity that kind of surface because you were there versus it going to your competitor.
I feel events are great for relationship-based businesses. No, it's like we're kind of going off on a tangent here, but it's like there's very specific businesses that really excel at events only because, and the reason why I say that is because let's take into consideration a couple of variables that make that a success, right? So we could translate this into social media to some element, right? If let's say your salespeople or whoever you send to this event are very good at building a relationship on the spot, very, let's say, extroverted as this one term. Let's say they're very extroverted. They have the energy to go out. They love to meet new people, love to build a relationship, and they've grown a lot of success in terms of like revenue and customers and blah 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 behind the scenes of that. Then yes. Go off and do that, right? And go off and build relationships at events. If you can sell at the event, great, go do that. Because that's their key success. That's their key, trait. That's a skill set.
Yeah.
But when it comes to social media, it's almost a different ball game. Yes, there's an element of relationships, engagement, blah, 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 and there's different metrics around that.
Yeah.
But if you're not good at social media, if you're not good at producing your own original content, if you're not good at writing, video, audio, podcasting, whatever it may be, and just putting your own content that's branded out there, then you're bound to fail because all you're doing is just whatever. You'll end up sharing other things, or you'll not gain a following, or all these different elements that are not going to work to your detriment because you just are not experienced at it and you just don't know how to be good at it, right? So there's no point. This is a variety of different elements when it comes to events and different channels. It's just whatever you're best at.
So are you saying that people just need to skill up on how to leverage social media?
Skilling up, but this is the other problem that I see in the market is all this education that's out there, right? I'm going to say the word BrainStation because people know about my relationship with BrainStation because they will teach you exactly that. Right, on how to get more followers, and you'll end up paying $1,000 or $100 or whatever the fuck it is for that course.
Yeah.
How to get more followers.
Okay.
But they will never teach you how to make more revenue off your followers. Maybe that's a course that we should build.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's truly what the most important part is. Because the number of companies I've seen die and burn and get absolutely tainted by marketers who spend tons of money on marketers and getting my followers up, but then they don't see a revenue return. That's dangerous. Yeah. Right?
It's just feeding into the hype, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think my biggest piece of advice when it comes to education is I don't even know how to say it because it's so saturated with wrong information through Google and through whatever it may be. I think the biggest mistake is people are losing sight of what is really important to their business because they're getting inundated with Facebook and
it's noise, right? It's just really noise.
And what Facebook tells you to do and what YouTube tells you to do, but what they're telling you to do is in their own selfish greed of, we want to get more subscribers on our YouTube channel. We want more people on YouTube. We want more people viewing on YouTube. But they don't really consider your business, right?
Yeah.
So
no, that's a good point.
So that's what I don't know. This was a rant show today. That's it. Okay, till next time. Peace.